Hey, welcome to the Tales of a Gearhead podcast. I'm your host, Stacey David. This podcast is brought to you by LMC Truck. Keep them on the road is their slogan, and they supply the parts to help you do that. Also, Cornwell Tools, the choice of professionals, and hot rods and enthusiasts alike. If you want quality tools, Cornwell's the place to go. Let's get to it. You know, a while back, we had a chance to sit down with automotive legend Gale Banks and talk to him about what it was really like to grow up in California in the 1950s. And he told us some great stories that were not only insightful, but had us all laughing. Unfortunately, there was no way to include all that stuff into a show. So here's some clips, Gale Banks telling what it was really like to grow up in the 50s in Southern California. Gale, let's talk a little bit about the history of hot rodding. You started hot rodding when? About what year?
1954.
Okay. Tell me about what was going on there in the country. What was going on? What was the feel? Rock and roll was just happening. Hot rods were just happening. That was a magic era. Tell us how all that felt. What was going on?
Well, as a kid, things were wide open compared to today.
Yeah.
You could go and you could race and carry on, and you know, the cops would catch you.
Yeah.
And they'd take you to your dad.
Yeah, and you didn't want to be in trouble
rather
with your
than
dad.
write you a ticket, or it was that kind of thing. Building a hot rod was it was like if you were going to build a car, you were going to express yourself in that car in your own unique way.
That made it cool.
So everybody had something different. Everybody had their own approach. For me, my first car was a 31 Ford Model A, and
really?
It was a coupe, two-door, and I didn't put a V8 in it.
Yeah.
A lot of the guys were putting the early V8s in them.
Oh, that's awesome.
Or flathead V8s in them, of course, before the overheads. And I kept the four-banger.
Yeah.
For me, it was all about what those cats did in the 30s and in the 20s. The Leo Guzens of the world that designed this stuff. Harry Miller, who made kind of this stuff that led to my four-port Riley. Overhead valves, two carburetors, get some air into the engine.
Yeah.
Ed Iskandarian, the first guy who ever sponsored me.
Yeah.
You know, these guys who were manufacturing speed equipment, I really admired them.
Yeah.
They were ingenious.
So what was it like in Southern California then? I mean, because most people say that the car culture came from California. Do you agree with that? What happened?
I think the California car culture came from California. And of course, you know, we had our own flavor on that.
Oh, yeah.
We went to the beach a lot. I surfed.
You're a surfer.
And would still like to, you know. Went to the mountains a lot.
Yeah.
We just went out and drove.
Yeah, just had fun.
People get in a car and just go for a ride.
Yeah.
Who does that today?
Well, more people need to.
The culture out there was, you had the coupe guys and you had the roadster guys. And they ran against each other. It was like Chevy and Ford.
Really?
But of course then, coupes and roadsters, they were all Fords of some kind, most of them. And then you'd have
the Chevy or
the really expressive guys would do something like a Plymouth or
Oh yeah,
whatever.
that was odd.
But mostly we hot rodded Fords, like the one behind me. The deal was, the car was the social engine of my generation.
Interesting.
Today it's computers and games and all of that. But back then, that was it. That was the technology that we used to win the chicks. You know, and the faster car you had, the better looking women you dated. I'm just saying. And they gravitated towards the guys with the neatest, nicest stuff.
So you had good looking girls.
Now if the guy's a jackass, he might get one date and it'll be over with.
Yeah.
But there were others, they were lining up for riding that thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Now, when you're out cruising, what are you listening to on the radio?
Well, I'm listening to rock and roll. Of course, we had also the surf sound.
Yeah.
Dick Dale and the Deltones.
Yeah.
And of course, the Beach Boys.
Oh yeah.
Which is timeless. All that stuff is timeless.
Yes. Yeah.
You had a lot of that on the radio, and then you had the El Monte crowd.
Yeah.
Richie Valens. That type of thing.
So
I listened to all of it. I loved all of it. I love it today.
Do you think that those kind of went hand in hand? You know, you made a comment earlier about how important the sound of a car was. And it kind of goes, the sound with the car and the sound with the music coming out of the car are all kind of the same. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, you know, of course today the sound of the car is coming out of the speakers on a modern car.
Yeah.
Back then, there were some car sounds which every engine had its own unique sound.
Oh, absolutely.
I think some guys built engines just because they liked the sound of that engine. A flathead V8 had a different sound than a four-barrel. A Chevy 6 with split manifolds.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Oh, what a great sound.
Sound like a bumblebee. and of course, when you backed them off and you had this popping in the exhaust.
Oh, yeah, you had to do that.
It was all about how hip it looks, how good it sounds, and how fast it goes.
Oh, yeah.
And impromptu drag races, every stop sign, every red signal was an invitation to race somebody. That's how it was.
Really? There was that much of it, huh?
Do you ever look back on that and realize what it was like to grow up in that era that everybody talks about? It's that almost that magical era. How do you look back on that? Because you're not really a back-looking person. You're a forward-looking person.
I'm a futurist, yeah.
Yeah. So in looking back, you see all these legendary people that are being honored at SEMA, and you're one of them. What was it like when you look back on there to be part of that piece of history?
Didn't realize it was special at the time.
Yeah.
We were just building hot rods. My thing's always been the engine.
Yeah.
And finding new and unique things to do to the engine. You know, guys like Dean Jeffries.
One of my favorites.
Those guys. It was about how it looked.
Yeah, they were awesome.
For me, it might not even been painted.
Oh, so you were that guy.
And the rat rods, of course, that's kind of how stuff looked.
Yeah.
I cared about who can I
You're
beat.
a competitor.
It was like a measurement of your testosterone output, you know, expressed in an engine.
And the good-looking women.
So it didn't seem special, but on reflection, it was as special as everybody who's younger imagines it was.
That's
it was that special. And things happened that were hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. My four-cylinder, they made a manifold, an exhaust manifold, to heat the car.
Not dangerous at all.
So the fan blew air through veins inside the exhaust manifold, and then through a valve to control the amount of the heat down on the firewall on the passenger side.
Oh, yeah.
I put it on every winter and removed my header.
Oh, boy.
Because it was damn cold in that Model A without it. And I took this gal out. She's wearing an A skirt.
I hear it
One of those, what they call poodle skirts with a bunch of petticoats underneath. And I had just put the manifold heater on. It's cast iron. And it had become quite rusty.
Okay.
We're going down to Long Beach to a place called the Aragon Ballroom. We're going to go dancing. And North Long Beach was nothing but bean fields. Concrete road, nice road. I just decided I'm going to show her what this thing will do.
Perfect place to do it.
I get it going real good, pretty quick. Starts glowing. Flakes of hot, glowing rust blow up her skirt. It's the hottest I ever got a woman in my life. Her skirt caught on fire.
At least that's what you told her, Dad.
That was the end of dating that one.
Oh, yeah. I bet. That puts you in that other category, the hot rodder category. You know, people ask me all the time, what kind of opportunities are there in the automotive industry? One, if you want to be your own boss, you might want to consider being a Cornwell tool dealer. I mean, they're always looking for people. They have routes everywhere. They're America's oldest tool company. They make the best tools in the industry, and they're a great company to work for. If you're looking to be your own boss, start your own business, and tired of cranking on wrenches, you may want to be a tool dealer. So, Gale, how was the relationship between hot rodders and police back then? I mean, I know there was the whole rebellious thing going on. There were hot rods. There was rock and roll. There were movies like Rebel Without a Cause. How was that affecting what was going on the streets and the car culture?
If somebody gets killed in a car back then, and they were in a drag race, it's front page. That was front page. Yeah. Not as many of us were killed as they made it out to be.
Well, that's good.
There were movies about these evil guys and their hot rods. There were books, there were magazine articles. There was art drawn of the scene. And it just permeated everything. It became the crime of Southern California.
Yeah.
These teenagers,
The hooligans.
in their hot rods,
Yeah.
with their T-shirts, with the Lucky Strikes rolled up in the sleeves, you know, duck butt hairdo, all of that. That's how a bad guy looked.
Oh, yeah.
Well, a lot of guys wanted to be the bad guy.
Oh, sure, sure.
So they did a lot of it, and people did get killed.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't have seat belts in most of our
Yeah,
cars.
it happened everywhere.
Roadsters didn't have any top on them. You get that thing upside down,
Oh, yeah,
you're
that's-
gonna get hurt.
Yeah.
So, you know, Wally Parks, Gordon Browning
Yeah.
from LAPD, who helped the NHRA for years,
Yeah.
brought it to a safe venue.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a
definitely.
good thing. We didn't realize how good. We continued to street race. It didn't stop that.
Of course.
Because the drag strip's not open 24/7.
Yeah.
But it helped.
Yeah.
It helped.
Yeah.
And it really, the real help out of NHRA was pushing safety.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, absolutely.
roll bars, roll cages, seat belts,
Yep.
safety harnesses finally, all of that stuff.
Helmets. Yeah.
NHRA had a huge hand
Sure.
in that happening. And that was good.
Now, you also had a huge hand in Bonneville, because you were heavily involved in Bonneville, were you not?
Yeah, I've been involved in Bonneville all my life. I think the first year was 59, as I recall.
Wow.
I didn't set any records, but I learned a lot.
But at least you were there.
And I think my first record was in 60 or 61.
Yeah.
And that was at El Mirage Dry Lake. We used to go to
Okay.
the lakes quite often in Bonneville once a year. Guys first went up there in 49.
Yeah.
Wally Parks and Bob Peterson.
Wow.
And they took Bob Peterson, Peterson Publishing, Wally, Alex Exidius.
Yeah.
Peterson had
Oh, yeah.
the only car capable of making that trip safely.
So,
So he got
Yeah.
to go.
Yeah. Wow.
And they set it up with Utah, and we started running. 1949 was the first
Wow.
meet.
history was born.
If you had to pick what your favorite car was in that era, from say from 54 to 64, whether it be a street car or competition car, what was the car that if you could have it back today, that would be it? Now you may have that car, but what is it?
I don't have that car.
What is it?
It's a 1953 Studebaker Starlight Coupe,
Studebaker? Really?
designed by Raymond Loewy.
Wow.
It is still a beautiful car. It is still
Didn't expect that.
incredibly aerodynamic.
Yeah, they were. They were
And
cool
it was
looking.
like aliens had landed, and that was
Yeah.
their car. It
Yeah, in
was
that
so
era,
different,
definitely.
so advanced. And
can see
at one
that.
time, I had three of them: a drag race one, a Bonneville one, and
Yeah.
one to drive on the street. Now I have none of them. So
Good
for
luck
me, it's a
finding one.
53 Studi. You know, my second choice, truthfully, is a 57
Yeah,
Chevy.
doesn't surprise me.
It
So
was so beautiful.
iconic. Yeah, it was.
And out of the factory, doesn't seem like much now.
Yeah.
You know, a 283, but
Yeah,
they did
were
an
good,
injected, a 283 horse 283. The Fuelie, those things were
Oh yeah.
absolutely amazing. They were incredibly fast in a beautiful car.
You know what the Black Widow was? The 57. It was a NASCAR version. It was a two-door post. They called it the Black Widow. They only made a few of them.
Did Smokey have anything to do with that?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, I know what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And probably Smokey cheated it in so many ways.
Did you have much experience with Smokey?
I had a lot of experience with Smokey, and Smokey started racing with Hudson.
Yeah.
Vince Piggins was there. Vince Piggins moved to Chevy and ran their racing, through about 84 or so. And he took Smokey with him when he went. But Smokey, the most basic thing you could cheat would be from the center line of the crankshaft out. They wanted to run, Smokey wanted to run offset wrist pins.
Okay.
Daytona Beach, when they'd run that, he'd
Sure.
come off the beach,
Okay.
those sand turns. He wanted more torque.
Yeah.
He wanted to offset the wrist pin
Okay.
in the piston to make more torque off the bottom end, give him an advantage in the turns.
Yeah.
NASCAR didn't allow
Oh sure.
anything but centered wrist pins in the pistons. So Smokey talks to guys at Hudson. He says, "Can I get these blocks unmachined?"
All right.
He gets unmachined block, and he offsets the crankshaft.
Oh, are you kidding?
That's basic cheating. That is the most elegant cheating I've ever heard of in
That's
my life.
awesome, man.
And that was a dinner discussion with Smokey.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So he was revealing some of that. Nobody else had heard of that.
I just asked him,
Yeah.
what's the cagiest thing you ever did? And he told me the story. He moved the center line of the crankshaft.
Wow.
What a man. What a man.
Yeah.
If you saw a car that Smokey Yunick built, that car was illegal. And if it wasn't illegal,
But you had
the
to
next
catch him.
NASCAR race, they had changed the rules to outlaw what he did.
Oh, yeah.
His view of the rule book was, if it didn't say you can't do it, that means I can.
He was so smart,
And he
though.
did everything that wasn't covered in the rule book.
Yeah.
He's probably 50% of what's in their rules was probably created by Smokey's cheating.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great, man.
He really was a genius.
People are just starting to realize that now as some of this stuff is surfacing.
Yeah.
You know, especially the guys, because I grew up hearing about him, but I didn't realize exactly what he was doing until, what was that Chevelle that he did for NASCAR or whatever? That
7/8 Chevelle.
Yeah, where he
Yeah.
did all that stuff. I think Vic has restored that car. Somebody did.
Well, you're talking about the undersized car.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was reading the spec sheet on that, and all the little things, just like you said, that he cut and tweaked and acid dipped and
Well,
this
the,
kind of
the
stuff.
damn car was absolutely perfectly proportioned.
Yeah,
And one of the NASCAR guys, maybe it was France,
yeah, yeah.
said to some of his guys, go out and find me an identical Chevelle to that one in the parking lot and bring it and set it next to that car. And when they did, it was really apparent. It's like everybody went, oh my God.
shrunk. They
Shorter,
left it out in the
narrower,
rain.
You know, everything was perfectly proportioned.
Oh, yeah, that was
It's
Smokey.
like you were looking at a correct car from 1/8 of a mile away.
Yeah.
You know, it was just littler, but it looked right.
Oh.
You got to admire the amount of
Oh,
labor
yeah.
that went into that.
Yeah. Were you the one that told me the story about him where he went into a check and he was supposed to have everything drained because the guy was saying that he
It's-
had more fuel?
Yeah, he wasn't pitting as often.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they had a regulation on the size of the tank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did not have a regulation on the size of the fuel line.
So he had sewer pipe.
Yeah, he had like a 2-gallon fuel line. Now that's not the one where
Yeah.
he fired it and drove away.
Yeah.
They told him you can't. There's something about they were looking for what was wrong, and they'd pulled the whole fuel system out of the car.
Yeah.
You know, and they couldn't figure it out, and he fired the car and drove it back to the pits because they didn't find all the
Yeah.
fuel system.
Yeah.
Yeah, how he did that, where it was,
Yeah.
I don't know. The big fuel line,
Yeah.
it was obvious. You know, that was a one-race deal.
Yeah.
One night I had dinner with him out in San Gabriel, and two things
Now that's
struck me about
interesting.
Smokey. He didn't eat anything
Yeah.
but bread and chili sauce. He had him bring more and more salsa,
Yeah.
and he dipped the bread in the salsa, and he ate bread and salsa for 5 hours, and we drank. I had dinner, and in 5 hours, he didn't tell me any.
Yeah.
He told me about cheating and this and that stuff that's cool to hear, but I didn't have
He's
much
taking
use
your
for it.
information. Yeah.
But I told him how I was doing things and where I was going and whatever. So on my way home, this light goes on in my head. It's like,
he took all your
"I'll be
intelligence
damned."
and didn't give you
I was with that
anything.
guy 5 hours. He didn't tell me anything of value, and I told him lots, too much. What the hell is wrong with that?
He sponged you, man.
Yeah, he just sucked me dry. It was like, Smokey Yunick, you SOB.
You know, back when I was first getting into working on cars, when you needed parts, you went to the salvage yard, or the junkyard as we always called it. Well, those days are kind of gone. So the question is, where do you find good replacement parts? Well, you've heard me talk about LMC Truck all the time, and that's one of the main reasons. Flip open one of their catalogs or go online and look at it. It's almost like an owner's manual. There's an exploded diagram of the vehicle. You can see where the parts go. Man, it's such a great way to help you with a project, especially if you're not familiar with it, and it's also a great source of getting the parts you need. Well, I guess by now that everybody has heard the news, we lost yet another legend in the music industry, Charlie Daniels. You know, and Charlie Daniels was one of those guys, you know, whether you liked country or rock or whatever, he was that enigma that kind of sat in the middle of everything, and he was just Charlie Daniels, man. He was kind of like Johnny Cash or, you know, one of those sort of guys. He just was kind of his own person. I remember, you know, when I was a kid, this would have been late 70s, you know, and I was kind of into the rock scene, and there was a, you know, there was a lot of country stuff going on. At that point, there was not what we called Southern rock, really. You had like Leonard Skinner and stuff, but it was just kind of rock. And the Eagles and all of that kind of thing. But, and then country was completely separate. It was this, you know, really traditional country. So you had this real dividing line. And then along comes a guy named Charlie Daniels, song on this fiddle telling a story about when the devil went down to Georgia. And the song was just mesmerizing. You could not hear that song come on and not listen to the whole thing. Even if you'd heard it a whole bunch of times. There was just something cool about the way he told the story and the music, and it was like, dang, I'm listening to a song with a fiddle in it, and I'm liking it, and I never thought I would. You know, how does that fit in with the Eagles and stuff? And it did. You know, Charlie Daniels was kind of the spearhead of that, which then kind of turned into the whole Southern rock thing. He was a great patriot and a great guy. So we're going to miss you, Charlie. Your music will live forever. We appreciate the gifts that you gave us through music. Keep in mind, this podcast is made possible by our friends at LMC Truck and our friends at Cornwell Tools. All right, that wraps it up for us today. It is time for you to get out there, start working on something, build something with your own two hands, send in your questions, send in your pictures, let us know what you're working on. All right, we'll see you later.